Tulsa history facts you never learned in school. In the early 1900s, a section of North Tulsa, known as the Greenwood District, was becoming one of the most prosperous African-American communities in the entire country. By 1921, roughly 10,000 black residents lived there. The neighborhood had its own newspapers, a library branch, a hospital, churches, law offices, dental practices, grocery stores, hotels, and a high school named after Booker T. Washington. Businesses lined the intersection of Archer and North Greenwood Avenues so densely that visitors and journalists began comparing Greenwood favorably to Beale Street in Memphis and State Street in Chicago. Some called it Negro Wall Street, others called it Black Wall Street. The prosperity wasn't accidental. Oklahoma's oil boom following 1905 generated significant wealth, and black Oklahomans participated in that economy through labor, land sales, and war bonds connected to oil production. Segregation, for all the damage it caused, also concentrated black spending power within the district, which allowed local businesses to grow. By the time World War I ended, Tulsa itself had grown into a city of more than 100,000 people. It was modern, busy, and economically significant, but it was also deeply troubled. Crime rates were high. Vigilante violence was common. In August of 1920, a white mob lynched a white teenager who had been accused of murder, pulling him directly from his jail cell at the county courthouse, and Tulsa police did almost nothing to stop it. A revived Ku Klux Klan chapter in the city had attracted roughly 3,200 active members by 1921. That was the environment surrounding Greenwood when the spring of 1921 arrived. The district's success attracted attention from across the country, with investors and entrepreneurs recognizing the economic potential of Black Wall Street. Many white residents in surrounding neighborhoods resented the visible prosperity and independence that Greenwood's black entrepreneurs had achieved, creating simmering tensions beneath the surface of daily life. The thriving black community stood in sharp contrast to struggling white sections of Tulsa, and that economic disparity fueled deep resentment among those who felt left behind. On the morning of May 30th, 1921, a 19-year-old black man named Dick Rowland was riding an elevator in the Drexel building at 3rd and Main. The elevator was operated by a white woman named Sarah Page. Exactly what happened between them is not known with certainty. Accounts varied widely, and each retelling in the white community that day made the story more extreme than the one before it. Rowland was arrested by Tulsa police the following day, May 31st. That afternoon, the Tulsa Tribune ran a front-page story saying Rowland had sexually assaulted Page. The paper also ran an editorial stating that a lynching was being planned for that night. By evening, a large white mob had gathered outside the courthouse demanding the sheriff hand Rowland over. The sheriff refused to release him. Word spread into Greenwood, and a group of black men, many of them World War I veterans, went to the courthouse to make clear they would defend Rowland if needed. The sheriff turned them away. They came back a second time, a larger group now, again armed. At some point during a confrontation outside the courthouse, a white man attempted to disarm one of the black men. A shot was fired. Within moments, both sides were shooting at each other, and the violence spread outward into the streets. That single confrontation was the point at which the Tulsa Race Massacre began. In the early morning hours of June 1st, 1921, armed white rioters moved into the Greenwood District and began burning it down. Many of the rioters were recently returned veterans with military training, and eyewitness accounts described them shooting black residents on sight. Some reports indicated that airplanes flew over the neighborhood during the attack, though the exact role of those aircraft has been debated by historians. Entire blocks were set on fire while residents tried to flee with whatever they could carry. Among those caught in the violence was Dr. A.C. Jackson, a surgeon so accomplished that the Mayo Clinic had publicly recognized his skill. He had spent part of the night treating wounded people. As gunfire thinned in the late hours of the battle, Jackson walked back toward his home with his hands raised. His neighbor, a retired white judge named John Oliphant, watched from close range as two armed men pointed their guns at Jackson. "Here I am," Jackson said. "Take me!" Oliphant shouted for them not to shoot, identifying Jackson by name. It was too late. Jackson was shot and died from his wounds. When the men who shot him apparently realized who he was, one of them reportedly said they had made a terrible mistake. No one was ever convicted for his death or for any of the other killings that took place during the massacre. When the violence finally ended, 35 city blocks in Greenwood lay in ruins. More than 1,400 homes and businesses had been destroyed. Around 800 people were treated for injuries at medical facilities. Early official counts recorded 36 deaths, but historians have since concluded the actual number was likely far higher, with some estimates reaching 300 or more. Approximately 10,000 black residents were left without homes. Property damage totaled more than $1.5 million at the time, which would amount to over $40 million today. More than 6,000 black Tulsans were detained at the convention hall and the fairgrounds by white deputies and National Guard members, and many were held for as long as 8 days. They were only released after a white employer or white citizen vouched for them. The destruction was remarkably systematic, with rioters appearing to target every structure in the district to ensure complete and total erasure. Survivors faced enormous obstacles in rebuilding their lives, with many having lost everything they had worked years to accumulate. The Tulsa City Council quickly passed an ordinance to rezone the Greenwood land from residential to commercial, effectively trying to block survivors from rebuilding. A lawyer named B.C. Franklin challenged that ordinance in court and won the case before the Oklahoma Supreme Court. Reconstruction moved forward despite heavy opposition from white political and business leaders. Within 4 years, more than 100 new businesses had opened in the district. The massacre was then buried. For decades, it appeared almost nowhere in history books, local records, or school curricula. The Tulsa Tribune removed the May 31st front-page story from its bound archive volumes. Police and state militia records related to the massacre disappeared. Most Tulsans, black and white alike, grew into adulthood without ever being taught what had happened. The silence surrounding the massacre reflected a deliberate effort to erase this chapter from American history and collective memory. It wasn't until 1997 that the Oklahoma State Legislature authorized a formal commission to investigate the event. The commission's final report, released in 2001, recommended reparations for survivors and their descendants. The state responded with a scholarship program and a memorial park, which was dedicated in 2010 and named for historian John Hope Franklin, whose father had survived the massacre. Oklahoma schools were required to begin teaching the massacre in 2002, and it formally entered the state curriculum in 2020. In 2021, a history center called Greenwood Rising opened in the district to document Black Wall Street and memorialize those who were killed. On June 12, 2024, the Oklahoma Supreme Court ruled 8-1 to dismiss a reparations lawsuit brought by the last 2 known living survivors, Leslie Benningfield Randall, who was 109 years old, and Viola Ford Fletcher, who was 110.